Self-care. It's such a deep, layered word, and for me, it's really become the process of getting to know yourself, showing up for yourself over and over again. In creation of the Self-Care Creature podcast, I want to teach you, too, how to have a relationship with yourself. We're going to dive into the psychological and physiological unfoldings of adopting what I love to call a self-care lifestyle. This podcast is here to help you, the stressed out but spiritually minded individual who can feel that wild calling in your heart, who wants to develop self-care rituals to support your daily living, give you the confidence and know-how to live through your intuition and raise your self-worth. You deserve it. You are capable of this. And I want to help you understand how the hell to get there, what it actually means, and how do you actually live it. That's where my intention is with this podcast. The Self-Care Creature podcast, brought to you by me, your host, Courtney Klopp. Let's dive in. All right, we're back for another episode, and I'm joined here today by Eva Collins. Hello and welcome.
Hi, thanks for having me, Courtney. How's it going?
It is good, thank you. And you, how's your day so far?
It's been really awesome, and I feel very relaxed because we just took a nice breath together. So I feel like life is good and my day was great.
I love that. I found your work originally through a friend of mine and through your account, Why Don't You Say Something, where you are speaking up about issues in the online coaching industry and teaching about how to do normal ass business with integrity. And that is why I wanted to talk to you today, because I feel like I know a lot of people that are navigating online spaces. They want to have an online business. They want an online business coach, also in terms of looking for teachers in the spiritual realm, which I know you have a bit of a background in too. And so, yeah, I'm really excited to dive into this. I'll just state real quick that the goal for today's episode is to help you, the listener, navigate online spaces where you're seeking maybe business support or spiritual teachers, as we're saying, and just discussing kind of key indicators for what to look for, what to avoid. Of course, getting into sharing some personal experiences and hopefully just help anyone out there make more informed and safe choices on the World Wide Web and possibly specifically social media.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So good.
Do you want to tell us a little bit about your background? You've got a great background.
I'm like, where to start? I
Right.
feel like I've definitely done a lot of things, and I found my way here talking about the online business space and the coaching space because originally I was in the spirituality and wellness yoga world. I think I started about 20 years ago doing yoga and was always into like spirituality and meditation and chakras and different oracle card trainings. And as I was a yoga teacher or I trained as a health coach, I started getting more into online marketing, online business, as many of us do, because there's a thing called Instagram or websites and all those things.
TikTok.
So, exactly. That's like where these things are now.
Right.
So my background went from spirituality and yoga and then into, well, how do I promote my workshop online? How do I let people know about my yoga classes? And I started really getting into social media, online marketing, online business. So essentially, I did that deeply for a couple years, and I was an online business coach. I felt like I fell into shady practices, and I was actually working for a couple big names in the online business course and coaching space.
Mm-hmm.
And it was during the pandemic that I felt like this is just really not sitting well. This is some shady shit. Like I'm butting up against things that do not feel comfortable for me and are probably really, they were against what I learned as like a spiritual practitioner or a yoga teacher. And I started to speak up about these things and these issues in the online business or coaching space. So I essentially kind of quit everything. I started working at a nursing home and talking shit online on my Instagram account. And now we found a bit more of a balance, but that's kind of what happened.
Yeah, wow. May I ask, in what ways did you feel like these shady practices pushed up against some of your spiritual practices as well?
Ooh, so good. I could really dive deep, but I would say like on a big picture level that letting people make their own choices and decisions and have their own free will is
Yeah.
something that I feel is a good thing to do. That I think, wow, as a spiritual person, or when you're working with someone, or you have a yoga like student in your class, you want them to be in charge of their own self, their own body, make their own choices, their own decisions.
Yes.
So when I saw a lot of things that were positioned as either sales or mindset work
Mm.
that were really trying to push your agenda on a person, or push them into signing up for something, or push them to feel like I knew better than them. I'm
Yeah.
like, that's just not true. That's just not okay. So that was one really big thing. And I think a lot of, I would say, like skirting the truth or stretching the truth
Mm.
in marketing, kind
Yeah.
of those things of all our clients get this and that, when it's like that's just not the truth. And I
Right.
think like the truth is a good thing. If I feel myself lying or stretching the truth, I feel that that's something I've learned is not right to do.
Right.
So I could go on, and I especially love the yamas and the yamas,
Mhm.
and these spiritual practices you learn in yoga
Yeah.
of like non-harm and just tons of different things. So those are some of the elements that really bothered me, but I could definitely get into specifics.
Sure. Well, even just like, yeah, the free will, what comes up for me is like critical thinking, and that is definitely not something you see on social media. I love there's a quote that is like social media tells you what to think, not how to think. But then when you get deeper
Ooh,
into these places where you're being taught how to show up online, it really is. It's like just take the guesswork out of it for them and tell. But it's like that doesn't feel good. Like I like people need to be able to make their own decisions. I love that. Yeah, that's just such a great point.
for
And
sure.
my background is pretty similar. I haven't thought about it. I should have thought about it before hopping on here, maybe a little more, but whatever. I'm just flying off the seat of my pants.
Go
Um,
for it.
but I've been like a personal trainer and lifestyle coach with that since 2012, and it was in I think 2016 I is when I stumbled into the Beachbody realm. And
Mm,
it was such an interesting experience because I like the whole time. I remember even telling friends and my partner at the time, like, there's something about this that doesn't feel right, but I feel like I need this experience, which is like out the other side, I can share a little bit more about it. But that's where I feel like I was really being pushed to like, or just encouraged. It was like, just share your life. It's your lifestyle. That's what you're selling. And for a while, it felt okay. And like, there's elements of it that are okay. But then, especially when it comes to the sales and like the getting in people's DMs, like, it just like
mhm.
did not feel good at all. And then it's interesting. I'd love it if you want to speak more to I don't know, like dare I call it a pipeline, like of it's like you go like you're online, you're selling whatever, like it could be yoga courses, and then all of a sudden it's mindset, and then it's money, and then it's like I'm a business coach, and I
Yeah,
yeah.
you pretty much nailed that pipeline, pretty much. So, what you're speaking to is what we kind of see a lot online of people get into selling something or offering some kind of service. So, example, a yoga teacher. Maybe someone is doing like Reiki or health coaching,
Hmm.
and you tend to like learn more, maybe do more trainings, expand into doing more, which can often go into then we can call it mindset work, or maybe something psychological, or like life coaching. I
Yeah.
can just kind of do anything. And then after you do that for a while, often people will then get into teaching other people how to do that, which can be problematic and can be fine. But
Hmm.
that's the pipeline of suddenly you're not really helping people with themselves personally. You're teaching them how to do business or how to make money online.
Hmm.
So, what we see a lot of now is people who maybe were a life coach for like a hot second, but now they're teaching other people how to coach and how to make money because basically making money tends to be way more lucrative. And then I think at like the bottom of the barrel, we often see people get into very like sexy practices or sexy marketing,
Right.
which there's nothing wrong with sex, sexuality, sex work, but
Right.
it, it ends up being this kind of creepy thing of you're selling them on a dream, you're selling them on a business, you're selling them on how to make money and bringing sexuality into it, which is an interesting thing to sell. There's different ethics and parameters around that, especially.
Right. Yeah. Big time. Big time. And it just feels so like, I don't know if capitalistic's the right word, but just like sex sells, be sexy.
Yeah.
And it's like, hold on though, like, what are you selling? What is this
Mhm.
about? Yeah.
Exactly. Especially when whatever it is, if it's anything, if it's like life coaching, if it's business coaching, and if it's anything sexy, if you can't know, like, what are you selling? Like, wait a minute, what is it that you're
Right.
selling? That's a problem. Like,
Yeah.
that is a problem. And especially around sex, because we do know that sex sells, and we do know that it can turn off people's critical thinking when someone's
Mm.
flirting with them and all kinds of stuff. And there are certain topics, there are certain areas where you'd really want a trained professional to work with you. And so to me, I think sex, sexuality, and trauma, those are just a couple of areas where you would want someone well trained and who can stay within their scope of practice and really be able to work with you well. So it's just this weird pipeline that people often struggle, and they struggle as some kind of practitioner, and
Yeah.
they're also told I can make so much more money if you became a business coach, if you taught how to do this that, or if you started making sexy content. And I really understand it because I definitely felt like I fell into some of those things myself, so I do understand that it happens.
Yeah. When I think what was felt confusing for me in it is that the person, especially in this beach body situation that was teaching me things, was successful. So I was like, I'm learning from somebody that's been there, so she
Mm-hmm.
has experience. But I also love what you're saying that or what I think I heard you say is that there's a lot of other people. I think you used the term like just tried coaching for a hot second and now they're doing something different. And so, do
Yeah.
you have any suggestions for like navigating like people's experience and things like that
Yeah. I mean, it really
as
is
a teacher,
tricky.
I guess?
Yeah.
Sorry.
I mean, right. So, like, if you were saying if someone is a practitioner and they want to, get more information or work with
Right.
someone to help them be more successful or help to tweak their marketing or be better at their thing,
Yeah.
looking at how to navigate that, right?
Yes.
Um, and I think from my personal experience and what I've seen online, I would say so two things is to work with people who have like good training.
Mm.
So that could mean a lot of different things. I think especially if someone is working with someone um, in like psychological, financial, sexuality fields, you want someone to have good training.
Yeah.
Their own life experience is not enough. But if we're talking about, oh, I want to, let's say I'm a yoga teacher and I want someone to help me streamline my business or maybe get more one on one clients or help with my Instagram marketing, I would recommend looking at it like something that is going to feel fun and nourishing and
Mm.
supportive, not through the lens of just making more money. So, I mean,
Yeah.
of course, as a business, you want to say, well, sure, I want this to be profitable. I have goals that I would like to meet. But a lot of times in the online space, I think people look at it like this high that they're on of, am I going to win the freaking lottery? And is this the
Hmm.
golden ticket?
Yeah.
So you might see a program online, or you're on the fence about investing with this coach. And there's this kind of butterflies, panic, freak out, excitement feeling like, are
Hmm.
you playing the lottery? And so when you're looking at hiring or working with someone, to pay attention to that kind of feeling and more invest with someone that's like, ooh, I could really use a massage right now. That would feel nourishing. It would feel supportive. It would help me to do this or that. But it's
Yeah.
not with the goal of like 10 times in your income, because I just don't think that's even realistic.
Mm. Yeah. Thanks. That's a really great perspective. There's so many golden nuggets in there. My brain is like, whew, so many things at once. Well, I think I'm just gonna move on to another question is like, let's talk about some of the green flags that you might
Mm-hmm.
like. What are some of the good things to look for? I love how you're discussing like the sensation and the feeling because
Mm-hmm.
I've definitely, especially on sales pages, or
Yeah.
like and or a launch, and I'm like, oh my gosh, like, and I've become so good at seeing it, and then I know it, but then it's still like, oh, but this could be so good for me, and it's like I love the encouragement of just being like, well, put a pause on it, especially if there's urgency. Like, do not just dive in and do it
Yeah.
off the seat of your pants. And yeah, that sensation of like a nourishing massage, I really, or yeah, the idea of that, I really love that analogy.
Yeah, totally. Because it is very easy to get hyped up online. And it's very easy, like for myself personally, as someone who's neurodivergent,
Yeah.
and let's say, gosh, how much of the people out there are neurodivergent? I'm saying it can be very easy to jump into something or to make a poor decision, to be honest, or be impulsive when you maybe that wasn't the best choice for you. So I say that just a little drop about neurodivergent people and anyone who might be impulsive or need more support or time in decision making.
Yeah.
Um, I say a green flag is to be able to take your time.
Yeah.
That let's say you want to work with a coach. So whether it is for your life and feeling supported, or whether it is helping streamline your marketing, that there isn't some huge pressure of time that you have to sign up now.
Yeah.
So what I'm talking about is a bit of like the red flag and the green flag. Of the red flag is that pressure of like, if you don't do it today, the price goes up by $1,000, or if you don't sign up now, you're going to miss out and you're a loser essentially. And that kind of pressure, whether it's the price going up or the doors closed right now,
Yeah.
is just not the best for really good grounded decision making.
Yeah.
So the green flag on the other side of that is working with someone who does not put pressure on you like that. They
Yeah.
say, "Hey, I'm here. If you would like to work one on one or schedule something, of course, let me know." And there isn't a pressure to sign up now. And like, why would they want that from you other than your money?
Hmm.
You
Yeah.
know?
Yeah. Well, would you say, do you think that there is like any way to go about it in a good way from a business perspective, like launching and these kinds of things and having some sort of urgency in that regard?
Totally. So I think there's obviously programs or working with someone where it makes sense to have a deadline or a set time of working with someone. So obviously in a yoga teacher training, you might have early bird pricing, and then you might have, hey, the training starts this weekend, so we will be starting. And then you are going to have to wait till another 6 months to do the training. So there's obviously things where it makes sense. But I think there is like the good things to do are, sure, have early bird pricing and then have a set date where something is going to begin and start. But past that, I think my personal opinion, if we have to start putting on so many different bells and whistles
Mm.
to have someone sign up, then we might need to take a step back and look at, is this thing really in demand? Is it really needed? Because, like, for example, I will pay even more for food delivery. I will add on whatever fee. Actually,
Yeah.
I'll pay more. I'm literally not told you're going to miss out. I'm told you're going to pay more, yo. And I will check the box and be like, yeah, I really want this food. Bring it on over. Today's
Yes.
not the day for me to leave my house. So that's just kind of an example of, if we're having to put pressure on people or put so many bells and whistles, it could be more to look at. And that's not what I'm saying. Is we can look at kind of what is really for sale versus how can I make someone sign up now, and look at the marketing in it. Yeah, just sharing my thoughts on that a little bit.
Yeah, no, thank you so much for sharing that. I think that's really helpful because I know for me, and I think I've heard you say this in like on your own account, a lot of people come and find you, and then it's just like this spiral of like, oh my gosh, am I doing everything wrong?
Yeah. I mean, and no, I mean, I doubt they are, right?
Right,
But it's definitely, there are things to look at. And
right.
I think there's things we've been taught a lot, or
Yeah,
things that were normal or okay, um, in the past couple years, that now we kind of think, ooh, it's just not cool anymore. It's just, we don't need to do it anymore.
yeah,
Some of them are like, ooh, shady practices. And some of them are, ooh, we don't really wear those clothes anymore, kind of thing, right? When something
right.
goes out of style and you're like, ew, this just isn't me. So,
Yeah,
yeah, it can bring up a lot. And there's definitely many pieces to look at. But even being willing to dive in and
yeah,
question something, whether you're a business owner or practitioner, or whether you are considering signing up with someone, just looking at questioning and taking your time with it all is a fantastic thing to do.
yeah. Especially the space to ask questions, like that is so important. And
Mm-hmm.
if you can't ask yourself those questions because it's too uncomfortable, I think that there's something to explore there. And also, if you
Yeah.
reach out to somebody to ask questions and they're like, don't have the time of day for you, that's also
Yes.
a big concern.
Yes. Totally.
Yeah.
I think you hit on another kind of green flag, red flag around working with someone.
Hmm.
So if you are someone who's considering working with somebody, hiring them in some capacity, to A, have that person, like you said, be able to answer your questions and be open to that,
Yeah.
not shut you down or shame you. Or I remember there was a yoga teacher training I was curious about in New York City.
Mhm.
And I emailed this practitioner. I had gone to her classes like maybe twice in a couple of years. She lived far on the other side of whatever, the east side. And
Okay.
I emailed something asking about a training. And she emailed me back saying, either you get it or you don't, like just straight
Whoa.
up.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. And I was like, that's all I needed to know, that I don't need to work with you.
Yeah.
Um, but sometimes that kind of mean person energy is used in sales and is just crappy. And so we don't want it.
Yeah.
So I'm saying, someone who can take the time and patience to answer your questions. And then, secondly, don't be afraid to ask somebody else
Mm,
for feedback, or ask what they think about you signing up for something. Someone who does not have financial gain.
yeah.
Hello.
Right.
That's something that we should really embrace more of,
Mm,
and ask for support around, of what do you think about this or this program, or me investing in this? So getting feedback from others who are not financially invested is really helpful.
I love that because I'm remembering not specifics, but I feel like that there's like encouragement in some of these spaces of like, you don't need any outside input. Definitely don't ask your partner. This is your business. This is your
Yeah.
life. Like, And it's like, no, 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 no. Like, remember who loves you, who cares about you, who knows you, especially
Yeah.
if you're neurodivergent and or impulsive. Like,
Yeah.
yeah.
I was talking to one of my good friends today, and long story short, she's not in like coaching or online business anymore, but she was someone who got scammed at the same time that I kind of got scammed. We were
Mm-hmm.
both investing a lot of money in courses and with coaches who were basically a piece of shit.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and the kind of thing where they were really, mean girls, these coaches, and
Yeah.
it was total fluff where you purchase something on Facebook and all it was some old like Facebook live recordings and just things like that. But
Yeah.
I was speaking with her today and we were laughing because she was mentioning talking to her husband about her investments. And
Mm.
she would tell her husband, "You just don't get it. You just don't get it."
Yeah.
And now we can laugh and say he did get it. He did get it, that this just
Right.
sounded totally not okay.
Yeah.
So, of course, there are people who you may talk to who will not actually get it at all and
Sure.
kind of give some bad advice. But you know what I'm saying, that it is nice to ask an outside person. Like for me, when I started talking about all of this in therapy, I was like,
Oh,
oh,
ding, ding, ding.
okay, okay.
Yeah.
And a lot of times people will say to me, "Oh, I want to find a therapist who really gets this and knows this whole world." And on
Right.
the one hand, I totally understand that. And on the other hand, I'm like, no, talk to someone who has no freaking idea about the industry, because that will blow your mind. That will actually be a really great person to talk to who has like no idea of how the dynamics are or what's going on, because they are very like outside neutral. So, yeah,
Hi. Ooh, I love that. There, I could definitely see some pros and cons in that, but definitely
totally.
outsider perspective, big time.
Yeah.
I'm interested in kind of switching our gears towards more of like the spiritual space
Yeah.
because I just I see a lot. I feel like I see more and more these days spiritual teachers and or practitioners online that are kind of coming with the fluff and similarities as some of these like sketchy business practices that you're speaking of,
Mm-hmm.
but they're not, they're spiritual teachers and coaches. And so, yeah, I guess like my biggest question maybe to start with is how do you navigate like grounded spirituality for yourself?
Yeah, great question. I think it's something I hope to try to get into every day, or I'm trying to navigate it every day. And
Sure.
it's
Yeah.
been some wonderful ups and downs, some horrible experiences, some amazing experiences. So I
Yeah.
think that question for me, I've done a lot of things, done sweat lodges and chakra trainings and retreats, and it's just kind of been like, I'm 40 now, so to a certain extent I just trust myself a lot more, or I found like a balance in things.
Yeah.
But as far as like navigating grounded spirituality, um so for myself personally, like I'm very into yoga, meditation, mindfulness, and intuition.
Mhm.
And for me, I go towards practices that help me come back to myself.
Mm.
So
Yeah.
for a while, I was very into people or spiritual practitioners who they had the answers for me. So
Mm.
the difference in, maybe speaking with a coach who's going to ask you questions and help you ask yourself, how do you feel? What do you want? And then the opposite of that being maybe talking to a psychic who is going to just know like your name and your birth date and do a straight reading for you. So there's nothing wrong with that at all. But
Right.
for myself, when I say, how do I stay grounded? It's important for me to stay connected to myself. And I prefer to work with people primarily who help me come back to myself. And then I might get a psychic reading like once a year as icing on the cake because that's fun for me, but
Yeah.
it is not, it's coming from a place of me feeling grounded, and I can put that icing on the cake, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, big time. And even when I think about, because I have a couple of friends that are like, whoa, like, I think I have mediumship abilities and things like this. And even when they're exploring that, I see it happening in a very grounded way. They're continuously coming back to themselves. What's true for me? How do I navigate this?
Yeah.
And then also part of it for me, I think, is finding teachers that not just teachers, but like I wonder, maybe the word is like lineages, like is
Mm-hmm.
it like practices that go back in time, and it's not something necessarily that's just new and created, but that also
Yeah.
gets sticky, I suppose, with some things.
Sure.
But I really love what you're saying, coming back to yourself and making sure, like, I think it's so important to be able to build self-awareness within ourselves, have those critical thinking skills, really build self-trust, because I
Yeah.
think that's the biggest piece that's going to help us discern what is right or not.
Mm-hmm. I think like I just love what you said, and I I feel that we probably vibe in the same way or relate to spirituality in the same way of coming back to intuition and coming back to yourself, that's something very important to me. And there are spiritual practices or teachers that maybe tell you to like devote something, or like a person or a guru outside of yourself. And so
Right.
that's not necessarily anything bad, like
Right.
seriously,
Yeah.
but to know where it's getting out of balance and to know where do you feel like you're disconnecting from yourself or giving your power away to someone who knows something more than you.
Yeah.
So that's just something really important to me. And I feel like I've had bad experiences or my life has gone off the rails when I let go of that.
Yeah. Yeah. Gosh, there's just so much goodness here. Thinking about all of this. Definitely being able to disagree and like back to
Mm,
asking questions, I think is another really big thing for me. And having teachers and leaders that encourage that and love that. Like that is like
seriously.
hello, we need that in the world. We need to be able to think for ourselves. Like, I feel like the culture at large, I'm not sure exactly what language to use, like society at large, it
Mm-hmm.
doesn't want you to think for yourself. We want, like, it's everything is like we're on autopilot. We go to work every day, whatever. We're in these routines, and it's just so easy to not think and to not be aware. And then we find ourselves in these places because at our core as human beings and like mammals, we want connection and we need to believe in something greater than ourselves to feel connected, and we need to have, I totally just lost my train of thought, fuck, but whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's super important of, and like what I hear you saying is the mix of course we want to connect with others, we want to hear from others, we want support from others, we want to like be with others, hug others,
Right.
and then the mix of wait, are you literally putting too much into another person or another teacher?
Right.
And what you said, like ding, 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 wave the big red flag of if you don't feel comfortable questioning something, if you
Yeah.
don't feel comfortable disagreeing, if you're not really allowed to question things, I would say that's a huge red flag.
Right.
Whether it's like, I would say most likely you are in an environment or working with a practitioner or spiritual teacher that is, it could be cause for concern. Okay. It could be cause for concern. If you're like, you really feel too scared to say, ooh, I don't think that's cool. Or, for me, I end up doing something like this, or I feel this. So that doesn't really vibe with me. If
Yeah.
you're in a space like that, red flag. And maybe it's just you, and that's kind of where, if that happens everywhere you go, then maybe get some support around, your boundaries and communication.
Sure.
I'm
Yeah.
not saying it's every single teacher out there is the issue,
Right.
but the toxic spaces that I've been in, the cults that I have been in, culty spaces, you were not allowed to question anything.
Right.
Whether that is legit on a Zoom and they may say, oh, we're not going to get into that today, or whether it is through mindset work or spirituality work of saying, if you feel this way, that you don't see this yet, you just need to wait and you need to work harder because you haven't gotten there. You're kind of emotionally, spiritually shamed into just thinking that you're not right, you're not ready, you're not seeing it right, you know?
Yeah. Ugh. And that's just like
Ugh.
anything that makes you feel that way too. Like just trust your gut and just
Totally.
do what you need to do to politely bow out.
Totally.
I'll add on to that is even if you, because I've had the experience where it's like questions are of course encouraged, but then when I started asking questions, I was immediately shut down and like I just like there was truly no space for the questions, but it made it seem like there were. And so
Yeah.
also noticing that and just being like, what is going on here? And it's like, it's such a finicky line to walk because also all spiritual teachers and leaders in the world are also human beings and they're going to
Mm-hmm.
make mistakes. And so it's
Mm-hmm.
really, I think, coming back to that discernment piece of learning how like what are your personal values, what do you need in your own life and your own integrity, like is it something that's a fuck up that you're like, okay, I
Mm-hmm.
don't agree with that, but I can still be here? Or is it like, no, this is absolutely wrong and I'm leaving?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, there's so many good things to get into there. And it is a tricky line that like people have to navigate for themselves. And everybody's different. So
Right.
for me, I think I went between, oh, I'll listen to whatever you say, and I'm going to put all my hope and my faith and all my devotion into this person or this spiritual practice. And then the opposite is, F you, I'm out of here. I don't need anybody. I'm an independent person. And so it's like a tricky line for everybody to walk.
Yeah.
And, different people, different circumstances, different spaces, but just noticing where you actually feel comfortable to question something, to speak up, and if you are connecting to them or if you're connecting to yourself.
Yeah. Yeah. And of course, that journey to connecting to yourself is so deeply layered. Like that's my whole thing about being
Seriously.
a healthcare creature. It's like so intricate and deep layered. Like you touched on too, even being able to have the ability to ask questions is something that you might have to work on within yourself.
Yeah,
It's
for
not
sure.
automatically somebody else, but definitely
For
just
sure.
that encouragement of please always come back to yourself and trust yourself, especially if somebody's sliding into your DMs and you're like, I don't know about this, get out. Like, just don't know about it.
Yeah. Yeah. Somehow the DMs is where a lot of that shadiness goes down.
Why?
I mean, it's private. They think
Okay.
it's private. I mean, it is one on one,
Okay.
and
Yeah.
it's kind of an easy way to DM or text somebody. But on my account, I've probably seen, it's either through email or it's through DMs of, hey, hun, I really think you need to step into this opportunity. You don't want to miss out on it. I'd
Whoa.
hate for you to be stuck in a, poor mindset. I don't know what is going on, but people are
Yeah.
told that they are supporting people by, messaging them weird stuff to sign up for stuff. But yeah. But I have another thought on this topic
Okay.
from what you mentioned and what we're talking about. So, looking at spirituality and then staying kind of grounded in spirituality
Yeah.
and the mix of connecting with yourself and your intuition.
Yeah.
I would love to hear what you think on this topic of from back in the day when I feel like I first got into spirituality and especially the yoga community. It
Hmm.
was very much about community. It was
Yeah.
about how can I be of service. There was probably um, much more of a focus on being a great community member in the collective, in the world.
Hmm.
And I feel like nowadays, more of what we see is, and I'm doing like a huge, broad brushstroke, but it's like spirituality as selfishness. It's like this way of, I'm sorry, I just need to focus on me and it's all about me and I'm not going to do anything for anyone else, or it's all about like me and what's best for me. So it's just super interesting. And of course, not all spirituality is like that, but I
Right.
do feel like it's often, I wonder if we've lost the community aspect of spirituality and if it's more focused on that individuality is what I tend to see.
Yeah. Oh, that's such a great question. I was just thinking that too. I'm like, let's bring it back to community because I think you're right. Like there's a lot of individuality that kind of comes with this. And again, I think it gets tricky because something that comes to mind for me are like friends that and me included, like we want to travel and be out there in the world. And so you
Yeah.
really are kind of doing it on your own. But for me, when it comes to spirituality and self-care, like the reason why you're taking care of yourself and showing up for yourself is to be able to be there like with and for other people in the
Mm-hmm.
world. And
Mm-hmm.
that came to me after working with clients for so many years. Every single person from different walks of life is like, I want to be more present. Like, I want to be able to show up in my life with the people I care about.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, whether it's somebody that's depressed and or like not moving very much, or maybe that somebody that's older that wants to spend time with their kids or their grandchildren. Like, there's just a full spectrum of that. And yeah, we're like that there's some sort of like I'm gonna call it a black hole that's like sucking people into spirituality into more of this like individualistic way. And
Mm-hmm.
we see a lot of bypassing there and a lot of
Mm-hmm.
gaslighting that happens there. And it can be really, really tricky to navigate.
Totally. Absolutely to everything you said. And where my mind goes is, as I was mentioning back in the day, getting into yoga or spirituality, like I used to teach at a yoga studio that was completely by donation,
Mm,
which doing it completely by donation doesn't work, let me tell
yeah,
you,
right.
because the doors will close down. You can't just do that.
Yeah.
And I would say back then, it was almost shameful to be making a lot of money as a yoga teacher. It
Mm,
was almost in the spiritual worlds that I was in, it was almost that profiting or having money was a shameful thing. It was
yeah,
not something you would boast about. And hello, we live in this world and we live in capitalism and you have to pay your rent and buy food and
right.
you do deserve to have your needs be met,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
So it can swing the other way big time. But I also look at, like, I lived in a yoga ashram in San Francisco, and every Sunday we had a community dinner
Mm,
where people had different tasks that they were on, whether it was cooking or sweeping or
yeah.
dishes. And we hosted community dinner every Sunday. And so yes, it can swing the other way to be, oh my gosh, I can't accept anything. I'm just going to go above and beyond and do everything for everyone else. And there is that kind of weirdness in spirituality. But I do really miss the community aspect of how can I show up for others and how can I put my needs on the back burner a little bit to be there for others and support others and be a part of the collective. I'm not saying every day, but even if it's once a week for a community lunch.
Right.
So those are some of the elements that I see I don't see as popular in spirituality anymore.
Yeah.
And like you were mentioning, there's the bypassing of, hey, there's maybe people who are housing challenged or who are less resourced or who have different life experiences or who are marginalized or who are going through, I mean, a mixture of things.
Yeah.
And that individuality or maybe the bypassing or the selfishness is, I can't look at that. I'm sorry, I just need to focus on myself all day, every day. I need to talk to my spirit guides, and I can't even look at something that's here that makes me uncomfortable. So,
Yeah.
just a tangent about kind of some of the things that came up for me around that community vibe and then that selfishness vibe.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that tangent. It's just, I think, as again, coming back to like our human ways and the mammal ways, even like we are social creatures and we're meant to be in community. And I've, I'm sure you have too, or I hope have had also good experiences with community and being with people that are safe to share things with. And like when you get to a place in life where you can start to experience oh my gosh, I can never say this word, reciprocity.
Mhm.
And it's like flowing both ways, and then also it's not always 50-50. Sometimes you can't show up fully, and then you have people there that will show up with and for you. And I mean, I've been experiencing that. I just shared with you that I got in a car accident, and I've been amazed at the way my community has showed up for me and offered me things or asked me certain questions, and I'm like, wow, like I feel like that's a huge blessing and silver lining in the midst of that, because I didn't even
Yeah.
realize, or maybe I just like, kind of fell away from my vision of just how supported I am. And I know that can be really hard to grasp, like in this capitalistic, very, very individualistic culture that we live in, especially if you're finding your way into this stuff from being alone in your bedroom on your phone or something like that.
Yeah. Yeah. I hope you're feeling better around your car accident. And I'm so glad to hear that your friends or community have been able to support you. So I
Thanks.
love hearing that. And I hope you're feeling better. And where my mind went is I feel like I'm so passionate about this topic of spirituality and community or collectivism and individualism because so for so many years as a yoga teacher, I called myself a light worker. I was really trying to be a healer, and I was also told that the key to my success or my happiness was in like being successful, making money,
Mm,
like healing a lot of people, or kind of in the online business space, having some huge course empire.
mm,
And when I quit everything, I started working in a care center. So this was a community care center specifically for people of color and was different cultures than what I was raised with as a white woman.
mm,
And I got my ass handed to me in the most wonderful way of what community really means and what happiness really means. So
mm.
I found myself, bathing, feeding, dressing people, making no money, feeling the happiest I'd ever fucking been compared to some workshop launch or, hi, I'm a light worker and I charge this and this and that.
Yeah.
So it was a huge wake up call of, wait a minute, what have I really been sold? And what am I really doing? Because I feel happier than ever restocking diapers, restocking diapers. So what in the hell is going on? But the
Yeah.
amount of going to bed every day feeling like I showed up for my community,
Mm,
I helped another person. Like I know without a doubt that I gave back and I did a lot and I did some light worker shit for real. I
yeah.
mean, it just blew my mind because for so many years I'd spent so much money and done so many trainings and felt like I was this light worker. And here were these people who had no idea what any of that was. And I felt like they were real light workers and they were really helping the community when that's not what they were calling it, but that's really what it was to me.
Yeah. Wow. Thank you so much for sharing that. I had like all sorts of tingles happening in my body. I'm just like, yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Like getting out into our communities is so important. And no matter where you are in the world, even if you are traveling, like you're out there, like you've got to go out to eat, you've got to go to the grocery store, you're interacting in
Yeah.
community. And I mean, it's going to vary the different levels that we want to show up, but I think it's really important that we remember that we're not operating alone. Like it reminds me of like the term self-made. Like, are you ever really actually self-made? Because I'm
Mm,
sure there's a lot of people that have helped you along the way.
that's good.
Yeah,
Seriously. And there's not like pride in being self made to me anymore. I'm
yeah,
self made. Well, good. Okay, good.
right.
But also, let's be community made.
Yes.
Hey.
Yeah.
And like, as far as being like an activist or someone who cares about the world or community, it's
Yes.
not just about you rising and, one person or me getting ahead or getting what I want. Like, we're not all free until everybody's free. So, like, what is going on?
Yeah.
It's just a wild, it's a wild thing to get into and to question.
Yeah. I love that the term community made. I like want a shirt that says that.
That's good. That's really good.
Maybe we can start a petition or something for shirts like that. We'll see.
Okay,
Or
let's do
stickers.
it.
We'll see.
Coming soon to a
Yeah.
merch shop near you.
Uh, well, I have a few questions just in closing. I'm curious, like, what are your hopes for the future of the online business space and or spiritual guidance?
Gosh, that's good. Um, so my hopes for the future is that there is more, I kind of hate the word, but I guess more regulation around what people are allowed to do and say online.
Yeah.
So, I mean, can you just be a sex coach or a trauma coach when you have no training? I think that's not good. So, more like regulation, or hey, to call yourself this kind of title, you would need to have done this kind of work. Just on a basic level of, if you're a yoga teacher, you need to have a yoga training.
Yeah.
A lot of them may not be good, but that's a topic for another day. So,
Sure.
I hope for more regulation and more standards around the coaching industry. My hope around the online business space, and I do think we have seen this happen, is there is more regulation and crackdown. So, for us in the States, the FTC, the Federal Trade Commission, has been cracking down big time on calling something a scam.
Mm,
So they crack down on things around saying that you have like a money making system, promising that people will make money and things like that. So
okay.
in general, I kind of hope for more. It's so weird and bad to say, but I hope for more regulation or crackdowns around what people can say and do, because I don't really have a ton of faith in people stopping.
Yeah.
And my hope is that we really can help people do what I call like normal ass business of, yeah, lead a workshop, or yeah, have your email list, or yeah, offer something one-on-one in a grounded, normal way.
Right.
I don't want all of the like scammers or people who might be shady to taint the whole industry, because I
Right.
don't think that coaching is going anywhere. I don't think that healing or online business is going anywhere. I do hope that people can flourish and people can make money online and do it in a way that feels ethical and supportive and grounded.
Yeah.
So I would say those are some of my hopes.
I love that. And when I hear you say regulation, another word that comes to mind for me is protection. It's like protecting the people out there that are
Yeah.
going to be taking on these trainings and finding these teachers. And I also know what you mean by like it's tricky navigating regulation because, of course, you still want things to be accessible to people. And sometimes trainings and education can just
Yeah.
like really just get unaccessible really fast.
Seriously.
But
Good
we're not
point.
going to talk about that today, but yeah. I'm curious, how do you see the intersection of business and spirituality possibly evolving in the coming years? Do you have any thoughts?
Yeah. Oh man. I mean, so on the one hand, I think when I think of spirituality, maybe people who are healers and doing business, I think, just because you are spiritual and just because you want to do this thing doesn't mean that you're going to make a huge profit off of it. Doesn't mean you're going to get to do it full time. When you look back at maybe yoga teachers, it took them years to build a full-time practice. And that was after years and years and years of showing up and apprenticing and doing that work forever.
Yeah.
So kind of where my mind goes is, great. I hope you can lead a workshop or work with people. But I hope you also know that it doesn't mean you're going to instantly be rich, or doesn't mean that it's instantly about money.
Yeah.
I don't want people to be broke and just do everything for free, but I hope as we move forward that people can take a bit more time and learn more, and maybe even like mentor under other people, and
Yeah.
be a bit more community minded, and not go to how can I exploit people? How can I make the most money off of this thing?
Right.
Because that's just not like the whole vibe around spirituality for me.
Yeah.
So that's just something on my mind that I'll share around that question.
Yeah. I love that. And it can be tricky because it's like you want to do what your heart is called to, right? And do what you love and all of this stuff. But
Yeah,
when it comes to mixing like spirit work and or just spirituality with making money and paying your bills,
yeah,
like they can work, they can obviously work, but I say if you are feeling that strain of like I don't know how I'm gonna make this work, and you're like, and I just think that's where there's cause for like rupture to happen, in this atrophy
totally.
of just like I'm gonna bend my values, my integrity, I'm gonna stretch the truth, it's not that big of a deal. And it's just like I think you should maybe just get a part-time job and feel what it's like
Seriously.
to have a regular paycheck and take that pressure off of yourself. Like it doesn't
Yes.
mean that you're a failure. It doesn't mean you're going to work that job for the rest of your life, but do what you need to do to not have that pressure.
Absolutely. I mean, just put all of that you said on a shirt, on a post, because if when we talk about spirituality and business, let's say there is absolutely nothing wrong with having a job.
Right.
Where did we get that idea that there's some kind of shame in having a job?
Right.
I'm very grateful to the people who deliver my food. I'm grateful to the people who are going to teach children in the community. We're picking
Yes.
up the trash. We're making a coffee. I don't know how banks work, but they're typing on a computer and doing something in the internet. So,
Yeah.
what in the world can we let go of in that spiritual sense and the business sense that you have to do that thing full time, or otherwise you should maybe feel shame or you weren't good enough? Like letting go of that and really being a community member who has
Yes.
a job, who works in the community, is a great thing to
Yes.
do. And
Right.
that's a spiritual lesson right there.
Yes. And there can be so much imagination and fun in that. Like create your own path. It doesn't have to be one
Totally.
way or the other. Like you can figure it out. And I really love what you said there. Like go be a member of the community. Yes.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, I've really enjoyed this conversation. Eva, thank you again for being here. Can you tell people where to find you, about some of your offerings? Because you have some kick-ass offerings.
Thank you, Court. I really appreciate you having me, and I enjoyed my time here, and I could talk to you forever. People can find my Instagram, Why Don't You Say Something? And I have a website, whydontyousaysomething.com. And I have a Patreon where people can listen to bonus podcast episodes. People can schedule like a one-on-one hour call with me. That's what I feel is a low cost, normal cost, grounded cost.
Yes.
And I also have classes kind of every couple of months where I teach on normal ass business for service based providers. So,
Yeah.
yeah. And just thanks so much, Court, for having me. And I just think you're a fabulous person. And I've really enjoyed this conversation and also the work that you're doing out there to support other people. I just really, really enjoy that from you.
Ah, thank you. I will list all of your links in the show notes and definitely let us know as the listener what you thought of this podcast. Thanks for being here.
Yes. And stay tuned for the community made stickers and shirts.
Yes.
Woohoo!
Wait a minute. It's the outro. I just want to take a quick moment to say thank you so much for being a part of this self-care creature movement. This is a movement for individuals, our communities, the planet. If you're looking to dive deeper into our community, the best place to start is with our free mini courses. We also have many more online and in-person offerings. You can join our email list to stay up to date, or just check out, you guessed it, the Self-Care Creature website, selfcarecreature.com. You can also be a part of the conversation and help form what this podcast is all about. Simply just go to the feedback form in the notes below where you can ask questions and share your thoughts.
Lastly, we're going to ask, would you please leave a review on whatever platform you're on right now? We would really love the help to find more creatures in the world just trying to learn to take care of themselves. Thanks for being here, and thanks for taking care of you.